Here we are. Welcome back to the program. It's time for our weekly look at social media, what's been going on Twitter, Facebook and the rest of it. We're joined this week, once again, by John Bergen, our digital and social media director. Thanks for joining us. Also in Canberra, James Massola, journalist with the Australian Financial Review and prolific tweeter himself. And in Melbourne, social media commentator Bronwyn Clune joins us this week as well. We're going to start with you, John, and your tweet of the week. What have you selected this week and why?
Yeah, look, the big choice this time around this week for the tweet of the week goes to a fellow called Sen Raj. He's a PhD student at the University of Sydney, and I picked him because he's highlighting a really important issue, which is young people needing to enrol, get on the electoral roll to cast their vote later on this year.
We should just take, let's just take, there we go, you can see it now.
Yeah, now the reason why I choose it is because this particular image here, for those that are uninitiated, that's an image macro or an internet meme, a guy called Why You Know Guy. That sort of in internet parlance is used to express sort of incredulity and disbelief. And so what...
So this is a pretty common image used on Twitter.
Right. And what they've
for those
done,
of us who may not have seen it before.
Right. What they've done is they've adapted that. The Australian Electoral Commission has actually posted that image on their Facebook page and said, young guys, get out there, get on the electoral roll, cast your vote and make a difference, because apparently 1 in 2 18 to 9-year-olds, 18 to 19-year-olds are actually not enrolled to vote.
So this is, just to be clear here, a bureaucrat being clever and funny and with it on on Twitter,
using the customs and using the terminology of sort of the young people on the internet, so I think it should be applauded.
All right, that's interesting to see, interesting to see. Let's move on to have a look at some of the statistics, what's been happening online this week. Now, SR7 has put together this for us. Let's start, James, with John, with the Greens. Of course, that was a big story during the week, the Greens ending their marriage with Labor. How much traction did that get online? Yeah,
look, an incredible amount. I think after the Greens sort of announced the end of the formal alliance at the National Press Club, 24 hours after the announcement, it peaked from about 4,489 tweets a day to 9,700. And there was a huge sort of split, I noticed, just following the NPC sort of hashtag. A lot of people praising Christine Milne's sort of virtue and integrity and sort of sticking by her guns, but a lot of people were also equally bemused and a little bit harsh and a little bit critical, saying, well, what you're doing is you're not really tearing up any sort of formal alliance. You're still going to vote along those lines, more or less. You're still backing confidence and you're not blocking supply. So what's changed? And this was really encapsulated in a handful of tweets, which I might just read out quickly for your benefit. There was someone that said, that was a great speech. Sadly, you didn't end your agreement with Labor immediately. It lacked that punch. Another person said, shorter Greens, the Gillard government allowed the mining billionaires to subvert democracy. Our government, we are supported.
Well, let's bring in James Massola here on this, because I guess this cynicism was also very much the press gallery media response to this issue as well, when Christine Milne declared that she was breaking the deal. Do you think there was a difference between how this story played out online as opposed to in the mainstream media?
Oh, look, some difference, David. I think one of the things you pick up on social media at the moment really is there's a lot of negativity about the kind of the leadership speculation that's going on, and also I guess the other thing I really sort of picked up, or that stood out to me, was Christine Milne's announcement almost opened up a new front, I guess, in the bear pit that is social media. So we had people like Andrew Leigh, the Labor MP, and Jeremy Buckingham, the Greens MLC up in New South Wales, kind of going at each other now. So there's yet another front in which people are arguing. But I think, broadly speaking, the reaction online was fairly similar, and the question for me, and I think for a lot of people, is what has actually changed, given that you're still guaranteeing supply and confidence in the government? Yeah.
Look, Bronwyn Clune, this is an interesting point, because you know, in many ways the gloves came off when Christine Milne declared that the marriage was over, and we saw her and Julia Gillard saying tough things about each other. But online, it really is a lot more brutal, isn't it? They really get stuck into each other in 140 characters on Twitter.
Well, I think it's that great opportunity for people to have their say, and so many more people are able to these days, so they really are getting involved. And I think one of the good things that Twitter is bringing around in this election is more and more people willing to get involved and have their say on politics, which they wouldn't normally, you know, do in a public forum. So I quite like what Twitter is sort of bringing to the election this time round, with more and more Australians joining.
The other, John, let's go back to the other statistics this week. Of course, there was that Nielsen poll, which was a shocker for Labor.
That's right.
How did that play out in terms of this leadership issue?
Yeah, look, we saw an enormous spike in just the overall social media mentions of both Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd. 19,800 tweets containing the PM's name, and over 14,200 since February 15, and that skyrocketed another 2,000 after about 100% increase after the poll was released.
We can see it there. She's getting more mentions than Kevin Rudd.
Yeah, that's right.
But he's up there too.
It'll be interesting to see how the issue plays out. It's also interesting to see how it organically develops. A lot of people are just talking about it sort of in serious terms, but there's been this little hashtag that's bubbling away called Ruddmentum. A lot of people with tongue firmly sort of lodged in cheek saying, oh, is Kevin Rudd the PM? Yet Ruddmentum. A little bit along the lines of the Thanks Obama meme we might have seen on the internet, where everything can be attributed to Ruddmentum and everything means or heralds the comeback of Kevin Rudd. Probably poking a little bit of fun at us in the mainstream media as well for the ongoing speculation that seems to sort of play out across newspapers and broadcast media.
One of Peter Van Onselen's tweets in
That's
there. How
right.
did that get in there?
Our very own Peter Van Onselen.
Now, meanwhile, James, Kevin Rudd, in your paper, in the Fin Review, gave a bit of a lesson on how to tweet, or he was asked a few questions about how to engage on Twitter. He is not just Australia's, but one of the world's most active politicians who tweets. It seemed he actually made a bit of some very valid points in his little lesson there on how politicians and others should engage on Twitter. What do you make of it?
Oh, look, I think Kevin's a natural on Twitter. I noticed that he titled them his secret tweets. I'm not quite sure why that was, if his secret tips for Twitter, given that he's publishing them in a newspaper, but putting that to one side. A lot of what he said is right. Really, politicians who do engage well on Twitter do it because they actually talk to people who are tweeting at them. They reply. Kevin sort of quite famously will reply to just about anyone about just about anything. He's a bit of a social media tart
here this week as well.
Sorry about that, John. I noticed that.
Yes, fame.
Yeah. But what else did he say in this piece about how to do Twitter?
Look, I guess one of the things that comes out of it, you kind of get a sense that he really does have his finger on the pulse. He's talking about the Beliebers and the One Directioners, who are those kind of groups of people out there who are big Justin Bieber fans or One Direction fans. And the other point he kind of makes is, be immediate, use fresh language, and try and actually add something to the debate. And just to pick up on a point that Bronwyn was making before about the engagement, I guess, with politics on social media. It's a good thing, but you sometimes get a sense that there's a lot of angry people out there. It's difficult to be measured, I think, in 140 characters, and maybe that's sort of the other thing he's saying, is to try and keep things a bit more moderate.
Bronwyn, a lot of people in politics, following politics, roll their eyes at Kevin Rudd's activity on Twitter. But do you think he's good at it? And what did you make of his little, secret lessons of how to tweet?
No, I think he is good at it. I think it's hard to be successful on Twitter and not be good and be genuine, and I think he is. I get a little nauseated at times by the Rudd family love-ins, but at other times I think he's pretty good, and he's certainly one of the more solid and genuine politicians in Australia on Twitter, and I think that's why he's got the following he has. I mean, the results speak for themselves.
John, he's gone international in some respects this week as well. And I want to avoid showing another Kevin Rudd clip this week, but there's one clip about Kevin Rudd that really took off.
Yeah, that's right. He attracted the attention of a professor called John Boyer from Virginia Tech, who said, "Look, your social media footprint's so great, your sort of reputation precedes itself and sort of rebounds around the internet. So, would you like to have a Skype session with my students to talk about US-Australian sort of relations?" And
he's a pretty charismatic guy.
That's right.
Let's play the clip and have a look.
Crikey! This is a personal shout-out and invitation to former Prime Minister of Australia, Kevin Rudd. This is for you, Kevin. We've heard that you're the most socially networked and most digitally interactive politician on the entire planet. And we don't expect you to do this pro bono, Kevin. If you Skype with us, live interactive, we're willing to buy you a beer.
And Kevin Rudd had a lot of fun with the fact that nobody drinks Foster's in Australia. He's a 4X man from Queensland. But he's actually going to do this Skype chat.
He's going to do this, yes. It hasn't gone ahead yet. I'm not exactly sure when it is, but when it will happen, but I'm sure we'll find out about it. Should be very interesting to see.
Yes. Now, another clip that we've got to have a look at was, in fact, Julia Gillard, the Prime Minister.
Right.
Now, tell us about this one.
Okay, I like this because Julia Gillard, a lot of people have been saying, well, she's not embracing social media to the same degree as other MPs like sort of Malcolm Turnbull and Kevin Rudd, but this is her wearing what's known as Google's Project Glass. Now, they're basically what Google calls sort of an augmented reality heads-up display, which is a fancy way of saying it's a computer and glasses, allows you to do things whilst wearing them and you can see information. And this sort of got retweeted quite a number of times because I think it's fun to see her sort of getting a bit out of her comfort zone, not taking herself too seriously, and attracted
a few gags as well.
Like some people were saying the Green Alliance may be dead, but the Borg Alliance is just beginning. There's one for the Trekkies, obviously. Someone also said, nope, I can't see it. What writing, what wall are you talking about? And lastly, someone said, oh, her approval rating is over 9,000, which is a bit of an internet joke, which is sort of a not too subtle sort of nod towards a Japanese animation show called Dragon Ball Z, where someone wears something very, very similar in that show.
See, I wouldn't have got that
No,
joke.
that's right. Good thing I'm here to explain it all, that's right.
I'm sure you would have. Do you think the Prime Minister uses Twitter and social media well, James?
Look, I think the PM's pretty careful, like Tony Abbott actually, in what she does. Her Team JG sort of tends to tweet on her behalf more than she does. I think there was no accident in tweeting a picture like that, though, that picture of her using the Google technology. Labor's trying to set up the election. One of the sort of ways they're trying to frame the election is to talk about how they have a vision for the future, they're building the NBN, that sort of thing. And I think that's what that sort of picture actually emphasises to people, that Julia Gillard's sort of looking to the future. So I think that's why they actually put that out there.
Yeah, Bronwyn, what do you think about just generally how the PM and Tony Abbott, they do have to be more careful, I suppose, than other MPs, but do you think they do it well?
Well, they're particularly more cautious than other politicians, certainly, you know, when you look at Turnbull as well, who's another example who's fairly carefree at times. But yeah, I think they could embrace it a bit better, have a bit more fun, and I think that would be received well. Certainly, you know, when the PM has talked off the cuff and been engaging, like the misogynist speech last year, it has gone down really well, and I think people would like to see more of that side of her, certainly. I think there's, you know, a lot of room for improvement and engagement from her.
Yeah, well, great to talk to you all this week. Bronwyn Clune in Melbourne, James Massola in Canberra, and John Bergen here with me in the studio. Thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. We'll catch up with what's happening online in the social media world next week. Now, for those viewers across the Tasman, New Zealand news is next. Here in Australia, PM Agenda continues. We're going to be looking at the Telstra job cuts announced today. More than 600 of them. Is this just inevitable as we move online? Stay with us.